Is it water with the sheep in the box?
Unless you've been living under a rock for the past couple of months, you've almost certainly been made aware of the ongoing situation in Palestine, both in Gaza and the West Bank, namely the disgusting and despicable atrocities currently being carried out by the government and military of Israel against civilians, especially vulnerable people like hospital patients and children, and of course targeting critical journalists under the guise of going to war with Hamas. I'm not going to go too into the exact political situation or history of this conflict here because I'm not an expert by any means, and frankly, for the purposes of today's video, it doesn't actually matter. If you're watching this video, you've almost certainly seen the horrific images of young children being pulled from rubble, either dead or severely injured, in Israel's war of aggression, and social media has definitely helped to spread the truth in the face of the Israeli propaganda campaign. But today I want to laser focus on one specific piece of propaganda prevalent in pro-genocide circles that really pissed me off, as I do think it's something I can meaningfully contribute to, and that is this idea of a gotcha that actually Hamas and many Palestinians are anti-LGBTQ+, so why would any queer person support Palestine over Israel, a supposedly queer-friendly nation? Let's talk about the backlash to QUEERS for Palestine and similar pro-Palestinian movements and sentiments, and why, despite the whining of the right-wing genocide enablers, this sentiment, that being queer anti-imperialism, makes perfect sense and is simply an expression of principled empathetic politics, something people like the writer of this article, which I managed to get access to by bypassing the paywall using a free online tool, apparently find unfathomable, describing queer people being pro-Palestine and anti the murder of innocent civilians as chickens for KFC. When I first heard the phrase QUEERS for Palestine, I assumed it was a joke, a meme dreamt up by some right-wing wag on Reddit. There was surely no way actual gay people would cheer on a state infamous for its loathing of homosexuals. For all their zaniness, surely not even the purple-haired post-gender activists would take to the streets flag in hand to champion a country that would jail them if they were lucky and bump them off if they're not. But it's not a joke. These people are real. This is where wokeness has taken us, to a situation where the young of the West are throwing their lot in with a regime that would throw them from a top floor given half a chance. So let's talk about this argument, which, if you've been on Twitter at all recently, you've definitely come across a number of times. Is it somehow counterproductive or semi-suicidal to support Palestine or other cultures which are generally anti-LGBTQ+ and may have a lot of homophobic or transphobic laws or cultural norms, and specifically oppose Israel, an apparently progressive pro-gay state? I mean, look, these IDF soldiers are gay, so when you think about it, it's actually homophobic to oppose the brutal murder of thousands of innocent people, including children? Alright, let's go through the arguments one by one, using Palestine as the prime example. First off, let's not forget that statistically 5 to 10% of people in any given population are LGBTQ+, so at the time of writing, 20,000 Palestinian people who have so far been killed by the Israeli military since October, around 1 to 2,000 of them were some form of queer, statistically speaking. Of the almost 600,000 strong population of Gaza, that's around 30,000 to 60,000 LGBTQ+ people at risk of repression and severe violence. According to the International Court of Justice, they face a genocide. Say what you like about the general views of queerness or of the laws against it and so on, but that's a lot of queer people you're expecting Western queers and allies to just accept being eradicated by an apparently pro-gay Israeli state. In the same way, you can't generalize all of Palestine as being virulently queer-phobic. The establishment, maybe, the media, and hell, maybe let's concede that maybe even the majority of people are anti-gay. I don't know, that may be true, but all Palestinians? Nah, sorry, that's bullshit. Even if we ignore the Palestinian LGBTQ+ community themselves, for example, there are always allies. Maybe it's the friends and families of some of those queers. Maybe it's people who just see through the bigotry throughout their community. Whatever it may be, 600,000 people is a lot of people, and it's simply incorrect, not to mention kind of racist, to sit there and claim that every single person of this particular ethnic group shares a single belief or value. Hamas are anti-gay and have enacted despicable and unacceptable unacceptable violence and repression against queer people in Palestine. Yes, I agree. But much like Hamas attacking a music festival and kidnapping and killing defenseless Israeli kids, this is disgusting, but is not necessarily reflective of the people of Palestine. Indeed, according to a number of sources I've found whilst researching this video, a lot of Gazans fully rejected Hamas's attack on Israel that kicked off this war, or this genocide, and in fact even before the attack, a lot of Gazans were unhappy with Hamas, and the government was significantly unpopular in the region. Regardless, Hamas was elected in 2006. The average age in Gaza is 18, meaning that a majority of Gazans currently of voting age did not vote for them, and judging by how unpopular Hamas has become, it's likely that they wouldn't be in power if there had been elections held more recently. It's arguable that it wouldn't have lasted anyway if Netanyahu hadn't been actively supporting the group, by the way. But anyway, this whole argument can go downhill very quickly if we start to consider the people responsible for the actions of their government. As a British person, depending on how far back we go, that leaves me with a lot of blood on my hands, but even if we take just the last 25 years, that means that the British people are responsible for the atrocities carried out in Iraq, because that was our elected government that went to war, killing 1 million people on false pretenses, as well as the almost 400,000 British deaths directly tied to conservative austerity policies. Even though I was too young to vote for Blair or Brown, I have lived my entire voting life under a conservative government, none of which I voted for. Am I still responsible for the actions of a government I've done nothing but vote against, or ones that were in power before I was able to vote? Even if we blame Palestinians for the actions of Hamas, and we pretend that there are enough of them who lived to an age where many of them may have been able to vote in the 2006 election, what about those who voted against them? What about the people who initially voted for them but have since changed their minds? We know this happens all the time, and in fact this is a contentious part of Brexit discussions now, as a lot of people who voted for it initially have changed their minds in the years since, and that's less than 10 years. So why are we pretending that this doesn't happen? If Palestinian children are responsible for the actions of Hamas, then I have some bad news for the people of most Western countries, and especially the UK, and let's not forget the US, and their responsibility for the actions of the CIA in South America, for example. But at the end of the day, this is all just kind of semantics. As I mentioned earlier, this is primarily about principle and basic empathy. You can dislike people's opinions, political positions, etc., and still not want them to fucking die. Like, for example, we generally agree that healthcare should be a universal human right, as should stuff like welfare benefits, etc., and shouldn't be subject to things like discrimination based on political opinions, criminal record checks, etc., because universal means universal, and in the same way, I believe that nobody deserves to be violently repressed, murdered, and subject to ethnic cleansing, to have their loved ones butchered by a brutal occupying force in the name of defeating terrorism, or whatever the fuck. The fact that they may be homophobic may make them personally unpleasant to me, and obviously the October 7th attack was disgusting and despicable, but I'm not sure how that means that Palestinians who have nothing to do with Hamas and don't get involved in politics deserve to be brutalized by the invading Israeli army. These elements within Palestine may be harmful to the LGBTQ+ community in Gaza, but it is not my opinion that the punishment for casual homophobia that doesn't turn into action or actual harassment or real world harm should be all that harsh, beyond maybe education, but certainly should not be torture and death along with all your family, because I'm not an unhinged violent maniac. If you commit a hate crime, that's a different story. We can talk about prison or fines or community service or whatever, but I still don't think you should be fucking executed. But even if I was an unhinged violent maniac and revelled in getting revenge for some perceived anti-queer sentiment or beliefs to the point where I advocated for removing basic human rights from people espousing them, surely we can all agree that literal children should not be punished for the actions of their parents. Surely the fact that children are innocent is as uncontroversial as it comes. Like, if some guy called me a faggot on the street, I don't think I'd feel justified following him home and murdering his children, and I feel like that is a normal position to take. I really don't think that the 2-year-old kids that have been murdered by the IDF had all that many strong opinions about sexual orientation or gender and the civil rights relating to these, actually. So, not sure how me not wanting 2-year-old kids to die makes me a chicken for KFC. see. Likewise, if my dad were to do some fucked up crime, I like to think that it would be generally unacceptable for the state to visit revenge upon me in retaliation, even as an adult. This is why, honestly, I sometimes find it shocking when people say shit like this, because regardless of your political affiliation, sexuality, gender, etc., what is happening at the moment in Palestine is unacceptable and disgusting on every level. There is never a good excuse for the mass murder of innocent children. A group of people being generally anti-LGBTQ+ does not mean 100% of the people in that group are, and even if they were, I do not believe that they should be executed for those beliefs, and I certainly don't think that an entire ethnic group should be wiped off the face of the planet based on some homophobic people's backwards opinions. The people of Palestine are not responsible for the actions of Hamas. Most of them did not vote for Hamas, many did not at the time even, and even if they did, that was 17 years ago, and according to a number of sources, many Gazans are not in favour of Hamas currently. Remember, a good amount of people in Palestine will be queer themselves, and many will be allies. It is impossible to generalise Palestinians like this, and racist and horrific to try, especially to punish them for perceived crimes carried out not by the civilians but by other people. In fact, this is an actual war crime known officially as collective punishment. Mind you, Israel seems to basically just be doing war crimes constantly right now, so that one barely registers, I guess. But this is all really just unnecessary justification for the obvious argument. As principled people, many groups, including LGBTQ+ groups, have strongly held beliefs and morals regarding whether or not indiscriminate mass violence towards civilians, war crimes, colonial occupation and murder of literal babies is bad actually, and the fact that the basically unelected and broadly unpopular government and a number of the civilians are homophobic doesn't change that fact. If you somehow believe that the best way to deal with homophobes is to murder their family and enact a genocide, I don't know what to say other than please get the fuck away from me. No, I don't care if you're waving a rainbow flag whilst killing babies and children, you don't get to pinkwash this shit. Free Palestine. Sincerely, a queer for Palestine. To finish the video off, I want to take a look at Queering the Map, a free website where LGBTQ+ people can tag important moments and places in their lives and read some of the heartbreaking things that were posted in Gaza. I've always imagined you and me sitting out in the sun, hand in hand, free at last. We spoke of all the places we'd go if we could, yet you're gone now. If I'd known that bombs raining down on us would take you from me, I would have gladly told the world how I adored you more than anything. I'm sorry I was a coward. A place where I kissed my first crush. Being gay in Gaza is hard, but somehow it was fun. I made out with a lot of boys in my neighbourhood. I thought everyone's gay to some level. I don't know how long I will live, so I just want this to be my memory here before I die. I'm not going to leave my home, come what may. My biggest regret is not kissing this one guy. He died 2 days back. We told how much we liked each other, and I was too shy to kiss last time. He died in the bombing. I think a big part of me died too, and soon I will be dead. To Eunice, I will kiss you in heaven. Please know, despite what the media says, there are gay Palestinians. We are here, we are queer, free Palestine. Realising the feelings I had for you were more than adoration, realising that wanting to see you every day, to be with you and to talk to you, for you to call me by my pet name that you gave me. I miss you beyond words can describe. I wish if I had the courage to tell you, but again, I was scared. I didn't want to cause you any trouble. Now both of us outside Gaza Strip, but much far away from each other. I love you and imagine you love me too. The only thing that keeps me patient living in Gaza is the sea and you. I know I was different from a young age. I knew I liked boys early on, but society demands it remains hidden. I live elsewhere now, and I'm still trying to connect the dots. I wish things weren't this complicated. I don't want to hurt my family, but I cannot live a lie. I'm from Rafah, and she is from Deir al-Balah. She got married later, and I left Gaza Strip. To this day I think of you. To this day I wish to be back to sleep with you in the same bed. I want you to call for my name again. I wish if I can be with you again, my heart. I love you, despite what is always on my mind. I wish I could watch the sunset over Gaza Sea with you. For one night, I wish this occupation was no longer, and that we could be free for once on our own land. You had your hair really short. You were really friendly. I was too shy to make good talk, but your mere existence inspired me. 6 years later, I had my own haircut like a boy's, and I love women. The link to Queering the Map will be in the video description. I recommend you check it out. Real thoughts and raw, open honesty from real queer people in Palestine and around the world. These are human beings, not statistics, and do not deserve to die. Don't you fucking dare tell me that me and my fellow queers can't advocate for these people's safety and survival. Holding a rainbow flag in one hand whilst butchering queers with the other doesn't make you in any way better than the queer Palestinians dying at the hands of the Israeli Defense Force, cheered on by Western politicians and even tacitly supported by supposedly liberal parties like the British Labour Party and the Democrats over in the US. Thinking that genocide is bad is not ridiculous, actually.